Welcome to Liberty's Cage, podcast exposing the gears grinding down America's justice system, prisons that break spirits, courts that tilt against the truth, and a society that shuns those who have already paid their debt. Born from the fire of January 6th, where patriots were targeted for standing bold for America, we rip away the veil of the media lies and the government overreach. From gulags to biased courtrooms, we tell the stories of courage and call every patriot to fight for a system true to our Constitution. I'm your host, Sarah Maccabee, but I am flying solo today as Shane Jenkins attends the funeral of our brother, Bart Shively.
Love you, Bart. God bless you, man. See you on the other side, brother. Side, brother. Bart, I want you to know we will never, ever forget the sacrifice you made for this country. We will never, ever forget what the government did to you. We will use your death and burial as a rally cry to fight this tyrannical government. And I'm sorry I look like a mess. I'm not ready to bury one of my brothers yet. Son of a bitches are gonna pay for this one day, one way or another. You bastards did this to this man, and you need to pay for it. Godspeed, Bart. I will see you on the other side, brother. I know you knew Jesus. I can't wait to see you again. Smile on three.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
We love you, Bart, on three.
We love you, Bart!
One of Bart's dying wishes was for true justice to be served for his fellow J6 brothers and sisters. So we are going to ensure that happens. So let's expose them with the truths that the media hides so most Americans don't know, but we are going to use their own footage against them. In the wee hours of the morning of January 6, 2021, patriots started to make their way to the Ellipse, to the Save America rally, which started at 8 a.m. At 10:58 a.m., individuals began to assemble on the east lawn of the Capitol. At 11 a.m., Trump's children take the stage and speak for over an hour at the Ellipse. At noon, Trump finally begins his speech. We will never give up. We will never concede. At 12:15, Trump states his now infamous line, "I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard." At 12:53 p.m., as President Trump continues to speak, the crowd outside of the Capitol is swelling. Minutes later, Nancy Pelosi commences the certification process. At 11:54 p.m., 1 minute later, the barricades had been breached. At 1:10, Trump ended his speech and stated, "We fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue." Shortly thereafter, Capitol Police began firing tear gas, flashbangs, rubber bullets into the crowd, then called for backup and sent an evacuation warning. At that same time, Benjamin Phillips had also collapsed and died shortly thereafter. At 1:26 p.m., lawmakers are evacuated from the Senate chamber. At 1:34 that afternoon, patriots from the Save America rally arrived at the Capitol. 2:05 p.m., Kevin Greeson suffered a heart attack from police mutilations and passed away. At At 2:43, red and green smoke were released on the northwest side of the Capitol, and a red flare was shot into the air. And what happened 1 minute after that? At 2:44, Ashley Babbitt was shot by Capitol Police Officer Michael Byrd. At 2:46, Rosanne Boyland was beaten to death by D.C. Metropolitan Police Officer Lila Morris. And finally, at 5:20 that evening, the first round of National Guard troops arrived. 5 hours too late. This documentary, January 6, A True Timeline, gives you a never-before-seen time-stamped blueprint for the events of January 6 as they unfolded in real time. No other film to date fills the gaps or tells the story chronologically in the way this film does. The film is also different from anything produced to date because a small group of protesters, some who were January 6 defendants, have been the ones to collect the hours of footage and help put together the events of the day. I hope that the hope of this film will provoke all Americans to be more curious about the true timeline of January 6. If you'll please play that video.
January 6th, 2021, Washington, D.C. An event that has been reported on more than any other in modern history.
We have hundreds of thousands of people here, and I just want them to be recognized by the fake news media. Turn your cameras, please, and show what's really happening out here.
It does look like we're going to have an ad hoc march stepping off here.
Despite excessive coverage, many details about the timeline of events that day remain unknown to the public. Understanding what actually happened on January 6th without bias and with as much context as possible is extremely difficult.
I need the less than lethal team positioned above me to identify the agitators and start deploying.
Let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all for being here. This is incredible.
Many of us still do not know the names of those who were killed at the Capitol and the causes of their deaths. This video seeks to create a thorough and truthful timeline of the events of January 6th.
We are going to get overrun on the steps of the Capitol right now.
Truth, not agenda, is the motivation for this timeline. January 6th, A True Timeline. Premieres New Year's Day.
I'm sure this raises even more questions for you. How did these protesters die and why? How is the government misrepresenting a restricted area to convict Americans? How many protesters really knew that they were entering the restricted areas on Capitol grounds that day? Do Americans know that the flexible fencing that was placed on Capitol grounds for the purpose of constructing the inaugural stage? Do Americans know that the Capitol Police were told prior to January 6th to not use munitions on the crowd? Why was there so much chaos? Why did it eventually turn into what would considered a riot? Were the police prepared to handle the crowds that day? Why didn't the police arrest individuals before the violence escalated? What really happened in the tunnel on January 6th? And how did Rosanne Boyland die? Why did Officer Michael Byrd shoot Ashley Babbitt when she was flanked from behind by Metro police officers? What were the communications between Mayor Bowser, member of Congress, Chief Sund, and Yogananda Pittman? Why are police heard saying that they were the ones that were set up? Why does former Capitol Police Officer Tariq Johnson continue to say that former Assistant Chief of the United States Capitol Police Force Intelligence, Yogananda Pittman, is largely responsible for the chaos on January 6, contrary to popular belief that it was President Trump? These and many other questions remain unanswered and should provoke Americans to think more critically about why the day unfolded the way that it did. The mainstream media and our government have shown zero interest in truthful, unbiased reporting of January 6th, to the detriment of so many 1,600 individuals. So it is up to us to get the truth out. Because the fact of the matter is, even though they now have a new select committee for January 6th and the uncoverings, we are now 6 months into this administration. That means 6 months has passed for these January 6th defendants who were given their freedoms back immediately They had no transition from the time that they got out on January 20th, 21st, 22nd, however long it was. They didn't have any halfway house time. They truly were just kicked out of prison and told to figure this life out. None of them, not one of them, went back to the life that they had before January 6th. And they were very deserving of that life. Many of them veterans, former police officers, firefighters, first responders in general. Those are the ones that the government targeted on January 6th. And I will forever be of the belief that the government waged war on American citizens that day. The more you look into January 6th, the true timeline, they use their own footage against them. Simultaneously, you see the things going on. As we talked about with the timeline, President Trump was still speaking when the Capitol was breached. And so all of the signs and all the fencing were gone. So everybody that came after that, they didn't know that they were on restricted grounds. And that's what they used against them in the court of law. They charged them not only with trespassing, but entering and remaining in a restricted building, entering and remaining on restricted grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon. Deadly or dangerous weapons could have been a water bottle, a pen, a flagpole, whatever you had in your hand, they considered a deadly or dangerous weapon to be able to enhance your points and give you a larger sentence. That is the problem that we have of violent versus nonviolent. Many of the individuals that was charged with violence was helping those around them, and they truly were not violent that day. You can type on Rumble, January 6th, a true timeline, or even look it up on Google. Many other people, because it came out last year, many other people have already reviewed it, like Tucker Carlson. You can get his take on it. He was fired around the time that he was releasing January 6th footage. It is a free documentary that will truly show the American public what happened on January 6th through their own eyes.
Corrupt judges, broken families, families torn apart. This isn't justice. If you've been wronged by the system, join us. Don't stand alone. Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs, president of Americans for Legal Reform. We're the oldest legal reform group in the United States. The justice system in the United States should be transparent, fair, and open to everybody and accessible. Unfortunately, many times that's not the case. At Americans for Legal Reform, we are here to help. Join the movement. Visit AmericansForLegalReform.com and help reform the system before it fails you.
The America First Ultra MAGA store. For all your MAGA needs. We sell t-shirts, tumblers, flags, hats, sneakers, bumper stickers, and a whole lot more. The most patriotic America First retail store. The America First Ultra MAGA store.
Welcome, everybody, to the not-so-newlywed show, where three couples are going to compete for really great prizes. Okay, Donna, we asked Mike, who complained first on your honeymoon, you or him?
What do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think he said...
Lisa, this ain't the SATs. Just tell us what... Donna, who complained first on the honeymoon?
I'm sure it was me, but I have no idea.
Jordan is right.
No, it's always me.
What celebrity would you pick for a one-day pass?
For me?
Yeah, for you, not for him.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon! Wow! Who do you hate the most on her side? That rotten no...
There's so many choices.
Thank you all, and thank you for coming out.
Hi, my name is Elena Ruseva, aka Megalangela. Please check my art at www.megalangela.vip.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed, because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
Welcome back to Liberty's Cage. Let's discuss the double standard that absolutely boils my blood. Democrats like AOC are out there screaming for due process, protesting ICE raids, demanding lawyers for illegal immigrants, and even tweeting about their human rights just last month. Doesn't that sound familiar? Back in 2020, they did the same thing for the Summer of Love rioters. BLM, Antifa, they were torching cities, and they had $90 million in bail funds raised, and 70% of the charges were dropped in Portland alone. Kamala Harris cheered it on. But for January 6 patriots, crickets. Not a peep from AOC, Schumer, or even most Republicans. And not much surprise, Mitch McConnell called J6ers insurrectionists in 2021, turning his back on them. These patriots, many of them veterans, had their constitutional rights shredded, and nobody in D.C. blinked. Not Democrats and not Republicans. It's a betrayal of everything that America stands for. We know constitutional rights were violated, but which ones were violated? The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches. Yet the FBI raided over 1,000 J6ers' homes, often before dawn, with their guns drawn and no clear warrants. That's not law enforcement. That's a witch hunt. And that's exactly why former FBI agent Steve Friend became a whistleblower. The Fifth Amendment, due process, speedy trial. Over 200 J6ers sat in jail, some for over 48 months, without a trial. This is not justice, it's persecution, plain and simple, targeting patriots for their beliefs. The Sixth Amendment promises a fair trial, but J6ers got anything but. Public defenders handling 80% of these cases were swamped. 200 cases per year. They barely had time to even read the files. And the juries? In D.C., 90% vote Democrat. Actually, I think it was even higher. 97% voted Democrat. And they were actually called victims of January 6th, just being in the city that day. Not only were the jurors victims, but the judges, most of the prosecutors, and even some of the defense attorneys were named victims in January 6 cases, but the true victims were the January 6 defendants themselves. And then the Eighth Amendment. Cruel and unusual punishment. As we know, our dearly beloved Bart Shively was fighting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, faced solitary confinement for 22 hours a day, and chemo was delayed by the guards who just didn't care. J6ers begged for PTSD treatment and received nothing. This was a system designed to break patriots and make them plea out. And why can't we see this injustice? Federal courts ban cameras, claiming it is for order. But let's be real, they are absolutely hiding the truth. If Americans saw J6 trials, coerced plea deals in 95% of the cases, biased judges trashing Trump publicly, on record, and juries labeled as victims, maybe they'd be outraged. In D.C., everyone in the courtroom was called a victim. The American people are screaming for transparency. Cameras would show the world who's really suffering. This isn't about order. It's about covering up a travesty. And patriots, American citizens, deserve to see the truth of what happens in these courtrooms. Unless you are sitting there taking notes and then going to blast it out on social media, much like Nicole Reffitt did for many of the J6ers, you had no idea what was going on in these cases, how the prosecutors lied, flat out lied, how they didn't allow audio in some cases, how they didn't even have all of the evidence to present in their own defense because the prosecutors wouldn't give it to them. Or in some cases, they gave it to them, but then they took it away from them out of their cells in D.C. They had access to, it was called the discovery on the web, and they could go and watch video. That is how many of the January 6 defendants in the DC Gulag were able to look through the footage and pick out the bad actors, pick out what they believed were the FBI agents and the undercover confidential human sources on the ground on January 6th. And particularly in that video, January 6th, A True Timeline, you see people not only in front of Ray Epps, but you see them behind Ray Epps. And after a specific signal is given, Ray Epps is moved out of the front of the vicinity where he was, and he was moved off the grounds. Why? Why was Ray Epps given a plea deal for misdemeanors only? Why were some January 6 defendants treated differently than others? So not only do we have a two-tier justice system in America, as we can see what's going on right now with Democrats who are trying to get illegal immigrants. They do not have rights. They are illegal immigrants. And when they cross that border, they committed a crime. They need to go back. And if they're allowed back in, then to do it the right way. But you have that screaming for justice. But then when you have Trump supporters that are locked up for years on end, that were denied not only their constitutional rights, but they were denied their basic human rights. Locked in solitary confinement for years at a time. They were no visitation for years. And then when they were granted visitation, they were brought from all over the country. And so their families had to fly, take off of work, fly, bring their kids for a 1-hour visit on Fridays. They were denied haircuts. They were denied nail clippers. They were denied religious services. And yes, it did get better in the DC jail over the years. I call them the OG J6ers, the ones that were in there, I would say 2021, 2022, truly endured the worst of the worst. And I have to give a special thanks to Mickey Withoff, who is the mother of Ashley Babbitt, who packed up her life from San Diego and moved across the country to not only get justice for her daughter, but for over 900 days, her and her team sat outside of the DC jail on what is now deemed Freedom Corner and allowed these individuals to call out and speak about what was going on. So when something happened inside that pod, they could put a call to action out. And it wasn't just for the people that were standing on the corner. People were live streaming it, and thousands of patriots across the country would hear that call to action and would call the jail, would call their congressional members and try to get some sort of action taken. And as we can see, Marjorie Taylor Greene went in with Louis Gohmert and wrote a cruel and unusual report about January 6 defendants that I hope is brought up in this new committee. I hope that they march all of these January 6 defendants into the Capitol, and all 535 members of Congress have to sit there and listen to what these January 6 defendants and their families went through. These January 6 defendants, just because they're out, doesn't mean that it's over for them. Yes, they still have to fight for justice, but they have to piece their life back together. And there has to be some sort of justice. For the last 4 years, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. It was President Trump getting in and pardoning these individuals. So they knew with the November 2024 election, and they knew with President Trump being inaugurated January 20th of this year, that they were going to be pardoned, things were going to be looked at. There was some sort of hope for these people. But now that they are out, the federal government and most of America has moved on from them. And that's just unacceptable. In the next segment, we're going to talk about what goes on in these prison systems. And many of these January 6 defendants face this. It wasn't just the DC jail. It was the federal prison as well. That, they not only denied them, but the way they treated them. The January 6 defendants were housed separately from the general population. And at the beginning, the guards really didn't know how to treat them, because when they would go in for their briefings in the mornings, their guards would talk and tell them that, there's terrorists in there, there's insurrectionists. And so when they would go in, they didn't really know that these people were just average American citizens. And I remember at one point, every night at 9 p.m., they would sing the national anthem. And at one point, early on, when they all stood up right about 9 p.m. and put their hands over their heart, the guards were scared. They didn't know what was going to happen. But over time, because of the due diligence of the American people on the outside, and because January 6 defendants on the inside continued to give information out about what was truly going on in there, things changed. And And the guards, some of them at the end had a heart for these defendants because of what they witnessed. They had never seen people held for 48 months without a trial. They had never seen them locked in solitary confinement in the way that they were, in the ways that they were treated. When something would happen, there was an event in September of 2022. And in the wee hours of the morning, the guards got these individuals up and packed up their rooms and sent them to solitary confinement in another part of the jail because they were unsure of what this event outside of DC was going to be. Well, it was an event to raise awareness about what was going on with these January 6 defendants. But they were just treated in such inhumane ways that if animal shelters treated their pets that way, that PETA would get involved. And so you ask yourself, why are there organizations out there such as the ACLU, such as the Amnesty Project, such as all of these groups out there that say they are for Americans and for our constitutional rights, and they are not? They were silent when it came to January 6th. Even some of the general public, they would come up to me and say, oh, we really want to support your cause because I was there that day. But I am afraid to do that. I'm afraid to be, labeled as that. And so fear was truly instilled into the American people, and it was sad to see. But now the tables have turned. Now the ball is in our court to ensure that true justice is served for these individuals, that not one thing is overlooked, not one amendment, their First Amendment right, freedom of religion in the DC jail was absolutely trampled on. It is time for attorneys and paralegals and individuals to rise up and say, I'm going to take on these cases, because there is just so many of not only the January 6 defendants, but so many rights that were trampled on that it can't be swept under the rug with a quick check, that it needs to go on record for the future. There needs to be case law about this stuff. Some of the cases probably even need to go to the Supreme Court, much like the 1512 charge that Fisher brought up in the appeals court and then brought up in the Supreme Court, and it was overturned, and it affected about 500 January 6 defendants. That is how we ensure true justice is served.
That's what we want. We want to see you.
I told you this was crazy. I'm out of here.
No, do that. Free stuff for all.
I have to be such a downer.
For you, bow to the master staff. Come to me. Oh my God, this guy's from Jersey.
Hi, how you doing? Fuck up my stage.
I'm pretty sure I'm a woman.
No, you're not, Steve. Oh! Oh!
A little wet on my side. Now instead of a poke, you're getting a smack.
What have I done?
Hi, my name is Elena Ruseva, aka Megalangela. Please check my art at www.megalangela.vip.
It's me, Joe the Box, the America First Warehouse. No, it's the America First Motor Club here in Ronkonkoma, 9013th Avenue. Sunday morning, we're opening up 9 a.m. Beautiful artwork from Nelson Medina. We just passed him over there. We're coming in Sunday at 9 a.m. hot. We're going to raise some money for our veterans. The event is free. You make some donations, buy a hamburger. There will be food, plenty of it. We love this country. Congratulations, President Trump. Congratulations to our country. One nation, under God. Sunday morning.
Are you a musician, comedian, actor, filmmaker, or artist who stands for traditional American values? Do you believe in the preservation of our nation, our culture, and our freedoms? If you share our passion for America and want to use your talents to make a difference, we want to hear from you. Our mission is clear. Through the arts, we uphold the principles of freedom, faith, family, and the American spirit. It's time to step up to the mic and make your voices heard. So contact us at AmericanConservativeArtists.com.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed, because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
The federal prison system isn't just broken. It's a third world disgrace, crushing the souls of Americans. From reality stars to January 6 patriots, Todd and Julie Chrisley laid it out on Life After Lockup. I highly recommend you go watch that. It's about an hour long, and it's a very intriguing series that they do, and they had their daughter involved. Their daughter, Savannah, is very heavily involved with the prison system. She was on a campaign to get her parents pardoned, but she also now has seen what the federal prison system is like because of her parents. Todd at FPC Pensacola dealt with rats crawling on him, moldy walls, no AC, and food so bad that you would rather starve. Julie at FMC Lexington lost weight, her health crumbling, and with no real medical help. She says verbatim on there that she watched her health deteriorate right in front of her eyes, and no one was there to help her. Doesn't that sound familiar? It's not just celebrities. J6ers in the DC jail were locked in with sewage leaks, black mold, and water that would give them rashes, per a 2021 U.S. Marshal report. In Mississippi, one of the prisons has mice and no heat, and actually NBC called it a hellhole. This is not rehabilitation, it's torture. And it's hard to believe, but it is happening here in America. Half of federal inmates get no proper medical treatment. At FMC Devens, 24% of healthcare jobs are empty. People wait months for care, per a 2025 OIG report. And we know from personal experience, Bart Shively's chemo was delayed in the DC Gulag, worsening his fight against cancer. A BOP lieutenant was convicted last year for ignoring an inmate's pleas for help. And I am telling you right now, that happens more often than you think. I am glad that that lieutenant was convicted, but many of these cases just get swept under the rug because the grievance process is broken. The grievance process is when the inmate files a complaint and is supposed to go up this chain of command and be resolved. But in many of the federal prisons and in the DC jail, we witnessed that this system was broken. At FCI Wakasta, women begging for addiction treatment were stuck on wait lists, while drugs like K2 fueled fights. This is not care. This is truly neglect. The BOP is a power kick. 4,000 empty jobs, $437.5 million in overtime. Guards are burnt out. As you heard last week, Shane said some of these guards are working 72-hour shifts. They have bunk beds. They have sleeping quarters that they stay in at the jail. And violence is up 15% since 2020, per the Prison Palliative Initiative. Last month, MS 13 gang members stabbed 5 guards at FCC Petersburg in Virginia due to understaffing. They are not only putting inmates at risk, they are putting other guards at risk. Staff's even cooking meals for inmates because they are not enough workers. Burnt out guards snap. Inmates suffer and fights erupt. This is not safety. It's a system set to explode. Much like what happened a few weeks ago at FCI Pollock, where Shane was housed for 9 months. But we will dive deeper into that next week when he is back and he can tell you his own experience at FCI Pollock. And don't get me started on family contact. The BOP rips families apart. Inmates now get 300 minutes a month for calls, 15 minutes a pop, and they pay for it 21 cents a minute per FCC rules. That's 20 calls a month, forcing individuals to choose between calling their children, their spouses, their parents, or their friends. Visitation, 4 hours a month if you're lucky, and canceled when the guards are short, and they will not tell you before you make your trip, so you will travel all the way to the facility and then be turned around. Most of the federal facilities are set up for video visits, yet they refuse to implement it. At FCI Dublin, inmates were punished for even asking about visits per a 2023 lawsuit. In the mail, oh, it's a mess. Delayed or lost. This system isolates, dehumanizes, and breaks spirits. This is not American justice. It's a third world shame, and we must demand better. As Shane says, these individuals are going to come out. They are going to be our neighbors, our churchgoers. We're going to see them in the grocery stores, and we need to ensure that they are rehabilitated. It not only helps them and their families, but it helps us for them to come out as contributing members of society. I believe that January 6 defendants have a platform now to get out and speak about these injustices and go to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I hope now with their new director and their new deputy, who we spoke about last week, that was a former inmate, so he also got to experience these things, that the policies are rewritten. And now you are talking about an uphill battle, but this must be done. America is supposed to be this beacon of hope, this light on this mountain to all the other countries in the world. Yet you look at our prison system and it's a third world country. It doesn't even compare to what other countries do. And in our rehabilitation, they call it rehabilitation. But when these individuals get out and they go to a halfway house, it is pretty much the same. And because they make money per person, per bed, as you know, it's the government, money laundering scheme, they're all in it, they look at you as a dollar bill, that they want those beds filled. And so halfway houses, they will send you back to prison for even the slightest inconvenience to them. And so you're sleeping with one eye open for usually for 6 months. But as they saw in during COVID, that when they sent individuals home on home confinement, the recidivism rate went down. Not just went down, it absolutely plummeted because individuals were able to be with their families. Sure, they were on home confinement, so they probably weren't able to work, go to the grocery store, go to church, unless they had special restrictions lifted. That they had that family time, family integration, or reintegration is a huge thing. You can have dads that truly can parent their children. You have spouses that are together. I believe after incarceration, I believe it's a 90% divorce rate. And it is because they are experiencing probably the worst thing that has ever happened in their life. And yet they have to do it alone. They have to face these battles alone because, as I just said, they have 20 calls a month. And that they have to pay for. So what happens when you can't put money on their books? You don't get a phone call. What happens when you write a letter to them and the mailroom either doesn't want to give it to them, opens it up and goes through it, or throws it away? Well, then that individual never gets that letter and never gets information. This is what the BOP system does. It's not just the BOP system, actually. It is the state system, county, and city systems as well. For them to have laid all of the internet wires, and I know this for a fact, they laid all of the internet wiring for video visits. And they have it on, they can do it on tablets, they can do it at terminals, yet they just won't turn it on. Why won't they turn it on? Has nothing to do with them. They would make money on it because they would charge, I believe it was $12 a video visit. But they don't want to do it because the guards don't want to do it, or because they're understaffed, or whatever excuse they can give. So ultimately, the end result is that the inmate suffers, and so does the family member. There's 122, I believe, 122 facilities across America that are federal prisons, whether it's camps, lows, mediums, or USPs, or they also have medical centers across the country. There's only 122 of them. Why can't the federal government, with its massive budget for Federal Bureau of Prisons, go in and start changing these things? One of the things that we said about the visitation system, when you go in, you see family members sent out all the time. Oh, they're not wearing the right color. They're not wearing the right clothing. You basically have to have its own wardrobe for when you go in there. They are so strict on things, and it changes from guard to guard, from day to day, from trip to trip. Sometimes you can show up and you can wear a certain color. Other times you show up and you can't. And it's just a travesty because they're constantly sending people out. So you have visitation from 8:30 to 2:30, and you get there at 8:30 and you're waiting to be processed. You might not be processed until 9 o'clock when the guard is good and ready. And you go in and they tell you that you're wearing the wrong color, or you're not allowed to wear that color. It's too light or it's too dark. So they send you away. And then you have to go to the nearest shopping facility, a Target or a Walmart, and buy something that you think might work. And you come back and then you're processed, and then it's 10:30 if you're lucky, 11 o'clock, and half of your day is gone for the visitation. Do the guards care? No. Does the upper echelons of the BOP care? No, because it's not them and it's not their family members that are affected. There needs to be standards across the board. If there were groups near all 122 federal facilities that when something like that happened, they could call out and they say, you know, from Saturday to Sunday this changed, or they're not even following the rules in regards to whatever it is, whether it's how far you traveled, then they could put pressure on these facilities. But they truly look at inmates and their family members, that they are really not a part of society. Guards treat inmates like they are animals, and that's not the way. Kids should not see their parents treated the way some of these guards, even in visitation, speak to these individuals. This entire system has to be changed, and it starts with people like you and me. It starts with writing letters to your congressional member, talking about this stuff. It's uncomfortable, but 1 in 2 Americans are affected by the incarceration system in America. So you think that they don't understand, but they absolutely do. And it is on us to do the right thing, to make those phone calls. Churches, rise up and stand behind these incarcerated individuals, because once their time is served, their debt to society has been paid. Their rights should be fully restored, and they should be able to not only get housing, but jobs and restart their life in a positive way.
The Queens Village Republican Club is America's oldest Republican club, founded in 1875. Situated in President Trump's hometown in Queens, New York, we are America First MAGA Republicans, empowering fellow Republicans to get involved in the game of politics at the grassroots level. We host inspiring monthly club meetings on the first Thursday of each month at 8 p.m. For more information, please go to our website at www.qvgop.org.
Corporate transfer, fine professional, moving and storage, and inventory management.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump's language mirrors this directly.
Well, Hitler was duly elected.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that is Mussolini Hitler-like language.
You say Nazi enough times, someone's going to actually have the guts to do it.
Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler.
What percentage of this event happening was due to Donald Trump's rhetoric?
Don't miss Trump next time.
What do you make of the excess deaths?
None of us, not the president, not those hypothetical guys in the smoky rooms, fully know what's going on. But we can speak about the unfolding of recent history with certainty.
Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy.
That is not how it works. That is a threat to democracy.
No. No.
You anti-Semitic piece of...
When you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit.
Free fries when you get vaccinated? Vaccination.
Six heroes whose lives didn't magically heal after President Trump pardoned them. Stand in the Gap was born from their plight, truly a lifeline for them. Emergency funding, legal aid, credit repair, health support, and now covering Bart Shively's funeral costs. Those 1,600 pardoned J6ers didn't return to their old lives. The system branded them as insurrectionists. 70% of them can't find jobs. 80% of them get turned away from housing. Families are broken and dreams are shattered. These are our patriots. 72% of them veterans and first responders who stood for America and instead got betrayal. Stand in the Gap is stepping in where the government failed them, fighting to restore their dignity one family at a time. Shane ran Stand in the Gap from the inside, and I ran Stand in the Gap from the outside, all the way to January 20th of this year. And then when Shane got out and all the other individuals got out, we realized that we had to take a turn with Stand in the Gap because it wasn't the things that we had done previously, like visitation and criminal attorneys. And so we still do emergency funding for these individuals, but on a different case by now, because now they're back and trying to get back into the saddle of things and take their life back. But it seems like the odds are stacked against them. And I will say that it seems like Americans have forgot about them, that, oh, President Trump gave them a pardon and now that they are out. I will say I believe some January 6 defendants were better off in jail because they had housing. Didn't have to be good housing, but they had a roof over their head. They had a bed to sleep in, and they had 3 meals a day. And they truly had the American public not only thinking about them, but praying to them, writing to them, and putting money on their book. And then when President Trump pardoned them, they were basically kicked out of jail that night and told that they were now having to fend for themselves. To give you a little insight on what these individuals are dealing with, I'm going to share a few requests we've had recently. A 20-year Special Forces Army veteran and 9-year private contractor was arrested in March of 2021 for January 6th. He was held without bond until the night of the inauguration. He never had his day in court, as the prosecutors kept pushing his trial back. I believe that they didn't want him to stand trial due to the information that would have come out. He was one of the individuals that called January 6th a color revolution. While he was housed in the D.C. Gulag, the FBI came into the J6 pod, locked everyone down, took this individual out and put him in solitary confinement, and then raided his cell. They took his evidence and they took all of his documentation. After that, he was moved to a federal medical prison in Texas, where they tried to deem him as incompetent. It didn't work. Even though his case was dropped due to the pardon, because he never had his day in court, so he was never convicted on those charges. The charges were dropped. He is now being sued for $500,000 in civil court by a D.C. Metro police officer for, well, let me just read you part of the court documents. The defendant engaged in extreme, outrageous, and intolerable conduct that was beyond all bounds of decency, thereby causing the plaintiff to suffer humiliation, embarrassment, degradation, scum, rejection, and ridicule, resulting in severe mental anguish, emotional distress. This patriot served our nation, and this is his reward? They taught him everything that he witnessed on January 6th, and then they used it against him. And what happened to the humiliation, embarrassment, degradation, rejection, ridicule, mental anguish, and emotional distress for January 6 defendants? They don't care about that, but this individual can sue this person now for $500,000. We are raising funds to cover his attorney. Another Marine veteran's family farm. A community cornerstone is crumbling after the legal battles faced for January 6th that drained him for over 2 years. He's fighting to save his legacy, his kids' future, and his town's heart. We are helping him rebuild, and it's a steep climb. You have all of these different requests coming in. This person is literally trying to save their livelihood. So they got pardoned for January 6th. They get their supposed life back. And then for the next 6 months, and who knows however long, they are trying to rebuild their life with all of the odds stacked against them. Another vet who is the sole caregiver for his elderly mother with dementia was evicted, homeless and bouncing around because even after the pardon, the J6 stigma makes jobs nearly impossible. The Brennan Center says J6ers face 65% higher unemployment than other former inmates. 65% because they are now labeled a J6, whatever it is. When they run a background check on them, it pops up, their record pops up, and even though at the bottom it says fully and unconditionally pardoned, they still see what charges were brought against them for January 6th. That man who served America can't keep a roof over his mom's head while he's taking care of her. These aren't criminals. They are heroes betrayed by a system punishing them for their patriotism. As we know, Bart Shiley lived in a hellhole, fighting cancer and fighting the feds for the last 4 years. He should have had the chance to live his best life over those years. The government didn't just fail him, they murdered him. They murdered Bart Shively. How? Because they let him alone to fight his cancer. There were times that I remember hearing of individuals when after Bart had his chemo and they were locked in solitary confinement, that they would look across the room and in his cell, he'd be laying there, and all of them would be locked in, so they couldn't get to him. But all of them, they would start yelling at him to make sure that he was even alive. And then when he got out, because he did serve 18 months, and then the judge said, oh, I don't want this on my hands. I don't want a death on my hands, so I'm going to give you time served. He got out, and he went from stage 2 to stage 4 cancer. And so he didn't get to get his life back. He slowly pieced it together and then sadly passed away. These are just a few of the requests that we have gotten from Stand in the Gap. There is a massive need. There truly is no amount of money that just won't help, because these individuals, they have from housing crisis needs to vehicles. There's individuals that need a vehicle just to get back and forth to work so they can provide for their family. They haven't been able to provide for their family for 4 years. They were away. They weren't able to be fathers. They weren't able to be husbands, sons, brothers. They weren't able to attend anything. And now they come out and they want to give back. Instead of being a burden to their family, they want to take care of their family, but they can't even get back and forth to work because of transportation issues. Why? Because they had to sell their vehicle to be able to pay for attorneys, be able to put their monies on the books, be able to keep their head above water. There's so many things that we could talk about for January 6 defendants and what they're going through, the mental anguish of what they are dealing with. I truly wasn't prepared to see these individuals who I look up to as heroes and leaders among men that stood, that they didn't take a knee, they didn't bend to tyranny, they decided to stand up, and it didn't matter what they faced. It didn't matter the conditions that they lived in, what constitutional rights were completely dissolved in front of them. They continued to stand. And it was for people like you and I that weren't there on January 6th. But now the system has been exposed because of January 6 defendants. And so now they are dealing with this mental and emotional anguish that they have been put through. They literally lived in a box. They lived in a box for 4 years. And then they come out to society and the world has moved on. Technology has changed. Their children have changed. Their spouses have changed. Some parents passed away while they were in there. They had to deal with deaths of not only pets, but family members and close loved ones in there. They didn't get to attend their funerals. They had to grieve that process on their own. I know for myself and those defendants around me that I communicate with on a daily basis have truly downplayed what they went through. Not only me on the outside, but them on the inside of what the last 4 years. Can you imagine sending your child into freshman year of high school and getting out when they graduate? You missed everything that they went through for those 4 years. 4 years is a very long time. But these individuals quite literally stood in the gap. Apathy let this system crush our heroes. Apathy is enough good people sitting back doing nothing. One of my favorite Bible verses is Esther 4:14. People pick and choose what they want to be out of the Bible. And so you hear a lot of people say, well, maybe you were born for such a time as this. But truly the verse says, if you remain silent, deliverance will come from somewhere else, and you and your father's family will perish. But maybe you were born for such a time as this. What a time to be alive in America. You have never seen this with President Trump. He ran and won 3 elections. They used the full weight of the federal government to come after him and his family. And then they tried to shoot this man. We are witnessing history. And it's on us to act. We can't continue to sit back and do nothing. That's what got us here. That's what got stolen elections. And so now it's time to stand up. You can go to standinthegap.foundation to donate and learn how we're restoring J6ers and their families, one family at a time. And today's episode is dedicated to Bart and his legacy. As you saw earlier, Shane is there. He was with him in his final moments and was able to convey the other January 6 defendants that couldn't be there, but they were able to talk to him on the phone, and they were able to share fun memories that they had in the DC jail and truly give him a beautiful. So we will talk about that more next week as Shane comes back and is able to give us more insight on what he witnessed today with him and his brothers. But I would like to play a video for you of Shane giving Bart a plaque, the Billboard Platinum plaque. God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless America.
Holding your platinum plaque because you're the only platinum recording artist named Bart Shively in America. So, you know what I mean? So I don't want to hold your plaque, man. We love you, bro. If you're not up to it, I'll hold it for you. How's that? We'll hold it over you or next to you or whatever.
Is the platinum recorded record for the national anthem at the J6 Gulag.
I'm sorry. So here it says presented to Barton Shively to commemorate the #1 single Justice for All for charting on Billboard, bubbling under Hot 100 and digital song sales. #1 platinum recording.
That's awesome. Dude, that's great.
Here, take a look at it, Mark. This is yours, buddy. We love you, Bart. We just wanted you to see that.
Thank you so much, everybody.
For sure.
I love y'all.
We love you, buddy.